Yeah, I'm just finishing up here. I should be home in about an hour.
The dawn broke over the quiet farm, spilling soft gold over rows of dew-kissed vegetables. Diep stood at the doorway of the small farmhouse, her fingers brushing against the wooden frame as she looked out at the waking world. Her voice was steady but laced with longing as she greeted the day, her thoughts already on James. She whispered to herself that she was still waiting for a proposal that felt just out of reach, waiting for the reassurance of his voice. Nhi's laughter floated from the chicken coop, a bright sound that cut through the stillness. The little girl was gathering eggs, her small hands careful and sure. Diep joined her, crouching down to help collect the last batch. "These are the last eggs on the farm today," she said with a soft smile, though her heart ached with worry. She brushed Nhi's hair back and tied it neatly, remembering the way James used to ruffle those same strands with playful affection. Inside, the farmhouse held a comforting aroma of warm rice and freshly washed linens. Diep prepared breakfast while Nhi brushed her teeth, the small domestic scene a fragile imitation of normalcy. But Diep's eyes kept darting to her phone, willing it to light up with James's name. Each moment of silence pressed heavier on her chest, whispering doubts she didn't want to hear. By midday, they headed to the market. Diep balanced a basket of eggs while Nhi skipped at her side, practicing the game James had taught her. Villagers greeted them warmly, and customers praised the quality of their eggs. Diep smiled and laughed, her capable hands slicing fruit for buyers. But behind the brightness in her eyes lingered the loneliness of unanswered calls. As the afternoon sun softened, a figure appeared on the horizon, a woman with silver streaks in her hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Nhi's grandmother had arrived. The older woman's presence was commanding, her voice firm as she questioned why Diep had not stepped forward earlier. "Why now?" she asked, her tone edged with accusation. Diep was taken aback, her mouth opening and closing as memories she'd buried resurfaced. The grandmother explained that her family had been consumed with work, that only now could she come for Nhi. Her words were calm but carried an undercurrent of determination. She sat Nhi down gently, offering her a piece of fruit and told her to wait. Later, in a hushed corner of the market, the grandmother made a call, her voice low. She confirmed a transfer of 100 million zhong and promised another 200 if the child was safely brought to her. "She's my grandchild," she said, her eyes hard. "I have to be responsible, but keep this secret. No one must know." That evening, Diep returned to the farmhouse with Nhi, her mind clouded. She washed vegetables in silence, the cool water numbing her fingers. Nhi played nearby, oblivious to the storm brewing around her. Diep's phone lay on the counter, the screen still dark. When Nhi asked softly, "Miss Diep, why hasn't Uncle James come?" Diep forced a gentle smile. "He's busy with work, sweetheart," she said, "but he'll come back to us soon." But inside, doubt gnawed at her. She had tried calling him earlier, twice, and each time the line had gone unanswered. The farmhouse grew quiet as dusk settled. Diep cooked rice while Nhi hummed to herself, setting the table for two but leaving an unspoken third place. The air was thick with unspoken questions. Did James still love her? Would he come back? Could she protect Nhi from forces that threatened to pull them apart? Somewhere far away, James was staring at his own phone, torn between the demands of his company and the fragile family he longed to return to. His message drafts remained unsent, his work unfinished. A storm of choices loomed before him, each one risking the loss of what mattered most. As night fell, Diep lit a small lantern and placed it on the porch. Its glow spilled across the yard, a beacon for a man who wasn't there. Nhi curled up on her mat, whispering that she missed Uncle James. Diep's throat tightened as she tucked the girl in, her hands lingering on the blanket. The crickets sang outside, their chorus filling the darkness. Diep stepped out onto the porch, the lantern flickering beside her. She looked up at the stars, their distant light mirroring the fragile hope she clung to. "Please," she whispered into the night, "don't let him slip away from us." Behind her, the shadows of the farmhouse stretched long and uncertain. The grandmother's secret plan hung in the air like an unseen blade, and James's absence deepened the ache in Diep's chest. In that quiet, uncertain night, the question loomed large. This time, would love be enough to hold them together, or would everything she cherished slip through her fingers? The next morning dawned crisp and bright, but the warmth of the sunlight could not chase away the unease in Diep's heart. She woke early, the smell of damp earth drifting through the open window. Nhi was still asleep, her small chest rising and falling in a peaceful rhythm. For a moment, Diep watched her, torn between love and fear. She gently brushed a strand of hair from the child's face and whispered, "You're safe. For now." Diep slipped quietly into the kitchen to prepare breakfast, but her hands trembled as she chopped vegetables. Each slice of the knife was a reminder of the grandmother's piercing words. The older woman had seemed polite on the surface, but there had been something unyielding in her eyes, something that warned Diep that this was more than a family visit. By mid-morning, Nhi's grandmother returned, her steps purposeful. She greeted Nhi warmly, her smile wide, but Diep sensed the tension beneath it. "I thought I'd spend a little more time with my granddaughter today," the grandmother said smoothly. Diep forced a polite smile, though her heart hammered in her chest. They spent the morning tending the garden together, the grandmother complimenting the neat rows of vegetables. But her questions soon turned probing about Diep's plans, her finances, and her relationship with James. Each inquiry felt like a test, and Diep's answers, calm but guarded, seemed to satisfy nothing. Later, while Nhi played near the chicken coop, the grandmother's tone hardened. "You should have come forward earlier," she said quietly. "Keeping her hidden like this, it isn't right." Diep swallowed hard, her hands tightening around the basket she held. "I wasn't hiding her," she replied. "I was protecting her." The grandmother's eyes narrowed. From whom? From the world? Or from her own family? The words cut deep, and Diep felt her composure crack. But before she could respond, Nhi's laughter drifted toward them, a fragile reminder of innocence in the midst of grown-up battles. That afternoon, Diep tried calling James again. Once more, the call rang unanswered. Her stomach twisted with worry and doubt. She pictured him in some distant city, consumed by work, unaware that everything they had built was trembling on the edge of collapse. As evening approached, Diep busied herself in the kitchen, her movements brisk and efficient. Nhi's grandmother sat at the table sipping tea, her gaze following Diep's every step. "You can't raise her alone forever," she said gently, but there was steel beneath the softness. Even love has its limits when weighed against stability. Diep set down the knife she'd been using and turned to face her. "I am doing my best," she said, her voice steady but low. "And James loves us." The grandmother arched a brow, unconvinced. "Love is fragile," she said. "It can vanish when tested." That night, Diep put Nhi to bed and lingered at her side longer than usual. The child clutched her stuffed rabbit and whispered, "Miss Diep, Will Uncle James come soon? Diep kissed her forehead, her voice soft but certain. He will, sweetheart, he promised. But inside, her certainty wavered. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the trees that line the edge of the farm. Diep stepped onto the porch and wrapped her arms around herself. The darkness seemed deeper tonight, the silence heavier. Somewhere beyond the hills, James was fighting his own battles, and here, under her roof, a new one was brewing. Far away, in a quiet hotel room, James stared at the photo of Diep and Nhi on his phone. The weight of his decisions pressed down on him like a physical force. He missed them fiercely, but the demands of his company, his fragile legacy, pulled him in every direction at once. His whispered vow echoed in the empty room. I can lose everything, but not them. Back at the farmhouse, the grandmother's words replayed in Diep's mind, mingling with James's silence and Nhi's innocent trust. She closed her eyes, leaning against the wooden post, and prayed silently for James's safe return, for Nhi's happiness, and for the strength to protect what little family they had built. In the distance, an owl called out, its haunting cry cutting through the night. Diep shivered, sensing that the days ahead would test them all. But even in the quiet storm gathering around her, she clung to one fragile truth. Love, though tested, could still endure if they were brave enough to fight for it. The morning dawned with a cool breeze sweeping over the fields, the horizon blushing faintly pink beneath a waking sky. Diep stood at the sink washing vegetables, but her mind was elsewhere, on the grandmother's sharp words, on James's silence, and on the fragile little world she was trying to hold together. Outside, Nhi's laughter echoed as she played with a wooden top, blissfully unaware of the tension that hung over the farm like a gathering storm. Nhi's grandmother arrived earlier than expected, her figure cutting a determined silhouette against the rising sun. She stepped onto the porch with a polite greeting, her voice smooth but edged with resolve. I came to spend more time with my granddaughter, she said, setting down a small basket of fruit. Diep forced a smile and welcomed her in, but her heart beat faster. She could sense there was more beneath the surface, something that wasn't simply affection. Over breakfast, the grandmother steered the conversation toward stability, education, and responsibility. Children need structure, she said evenly, passing Nhi another slice of pear. Love is important, yes, but love without security can break a child's future. Diep's spoon paused midair. Are you saying I can't give her that? She asked softly. The grandmother's eyes narrowed. I'm saying the world is unkind. You must be prepared to choose what's best for her, even if it isn't you. The words cut like a blade, but Diep held her composure for Nhi's sake. After breakfast, she watched from the window as Nhi and her grandmother fed the chickens together. The older woman's hands were gentle, her laughter genuine, but her earlier words still rang in Diep's ears. She couldn't shake the feeling that Nhi's future was being quietly negotiated without her. By midday, the grandmother pulled Diep aside, away from Nhi's curious ears. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I've already taken steps, she confessed. 100 million transferred and more promised to ensure Nhi has a future. Diep's stomach turned. You did this behind my back? She hissed. You talk of family, yet you treat her like a bargaining chip. The grandmother's face hardened. I talk of survival, she replied. This isn't about pride. It's about her life. The afternoon dragged on in tense silence. Diep tried calling James again, desperate for his voice, for reassurance that she wasn't fighting this battle alone. But the phone only rang and rang. Each unanswered call widened the hollow in her chest. She busied herself with chores, collecting eggs, sweeping the porch, but her hands shook with quiet anger and fear. As dusk approached, the grandmother prepared to leave for the evening. Before stepping off the porch, she turned back, her expression unreadable. I'll return tomorrow, she said. Think about what I've said. Nhi deserves everything the world can offer. Diep nodded stiffly. her lips pressed tight. She closed the door slowly, her mind a whirlwind of doubt. That night, the farmhouse was cloaked in quiet except for the crickets outside. Diep tucked Nhi into bed, her hands lingering on the blanket. Nhi whispered sleepily, "Miss Diep, will Uncle James come soon?" Diep forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart, he promised." But as she stepped out of the room, her throat tightened. Promises, she thought bitterly, were only as strong as the people who kept them. Far away, James ended another endless meeting, exhaustion etched across his face. He stared at his phone, Diep's missed calls lighting up the screen. Guilt crashed over him like a wave. In that moment, he realized that no deal, no contract, no amount of wealth could matter more than the small family waiting for him. Dropping everything, he sent a message. "I'm coming home tonight. Don't lose faith in me." Back at the farm, the sound of a distant motorbike broke the stillness hours later. Nhi stirred in her sleep as Diep stepped onto the porch, her heart racing. The bike's headlights cut through the darkness, and then James was there. Dust on his boots, determination in his eyes. He swung off the bike and, without hesitation, pulled Diep into his arms. "I'm sorry," he whispered fiercely. "I'm here now." Inside, Nhi's grandmother reappeared, having returned quietly to test the man she doubted. She watched James hold Nhi's, who had woken and run to him with a delighted cry. The sight softened her stern features, but she wasn't ready to yield. "Words are easy," she said evenly. "Will you be here when the next storm comes?" James met her gaze without flinching. "I'll face every storm if it means protecting them." They all sat down to a late dinner, the air thick with unspoken tension, but edged now with hope. Nhi chattered happily between bites, showing James her new ribbon. Diep watched them both, her heart swelling as relief mingled with the lingering sting of the grandmother's warning. Later, under the canopy of a star-splattered sky, James and Diep stood outside while Nhi slept. The farmhouse glowed softly behind them. James took her hand, his grip strong but tender. "I almost lost you," he murmured. "I almost let the world steal what matters most." Diep rested her head against his shoulder. "Then don't let go again," she whispered. From the doorway, the grandmother watched them silently, her resolve finally softening. The sight of their closeness, of Nhi's joy, cracked the armor she had built around her heart. She whispered to herself, almost a prayer, maybe love, even fragile, is enough. And as the night wrapped its arms around them, the fragile bonds of family, tested, stretched, but unbroken, began to mend under the quiet glow of starlight.